Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. Have you ever missed someone and you couldn't explain why? Not because they were kind to you, not because they were perfect, not even because they treated you well, but just because they existed. Because somehow, in the middle of your chaos, your noise, your overthinking, they made you feel like you were home. And then one day, they were gone, and someone looked at you crying, looked at you falling apart at 2 in the morning, looked at you rereading old messages like they were sacred texts, and they said, "It's just attachment, you'll get over it. You're just attached to the idea of them." And something inside you wanted to scream, because you knew in your bones that what you felt was not just attachment, it wasn't just habit, it wasn't just comfort, it was something much, much deeper. Today, I want to talk about that something. We live in a world that loves to label things. The moment you feel something deeply, the moment something shakes you, moves you, breaks you, someone is ready with a clinical term, a psychological explanation, a 5-step guide to getting over it. You're just attached. How many times have you heard that? How many times has your pain been minimized into a single word? A word that sounds almost embarrassing, almost weak, almost like something you should be ashamed of. Attachment. As if the deepest feeling of your life is nothing more than a bad habit. As if the person who changed the way you think, the way you speak, the way you see the world, is something you just need to detach from. As if feeling deeply is a flaw. But here's what I've come to believe. The problem is not that we feel too much. The problem is that we don't have the language for what we actually feel. We've been handed a vocabulary that is too small for our hearts. And so we use the only word that comes close, attachment, and we let it carry the weight of something it was never designed to hold. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. Attachment is real. Psychology tells us about attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant. It tells us how our childhood shapes our patterns, how we cling to things that remind us of safety, how we repeat cycles we've never consciously chosen. And yes, some of what we call love is attachment. Some of what we feel is projection. Some of it is loneliness wearing someone else's face. Some of it is fear of being alone dressed up in romantic feelings. I'm not here to deny that. But I am here to say, not all of it is. Not everything you've ever felt deeply can be reduced to a psychological pattern. Not every person who has moved you was just a mirror for your unhealed wounds. Not every connection that shattered you was just trauma bonding. Sometimes it was real. Sometimes the feeling was not a symptom of something broken in you. Sometimes it was evidence of something alive in you. And there's a profound difference between the two. How do you know the difference? How do you know if what you felt was just attachment or something deeper? I've thought about this for a long time, and here's what I've found. Attachment is about what someone gives you. Depth is about who you become because of them. Attachment fades when the person stops being useful. Depth stays, even when the relationship is over, because it changed something permanent inside you. Attachment is about possession. Depth is about recognition. Let me explain that. Have you ever met someone and felt instantly like you already knew them? Not in a cliché way, not in a cheesy movie dialogue way, but in a bone-deep, quiet, terrifying way. Like your soul went, "Oh, there you are." That's not attachment, that's recognition. Have you ever been with someone, maybe not romantically, maybe a friend, maybe a mentor, and in their presence, you started saying things you had never said out loud before? Thoughts you didn't even know you had suddenly came out, clear and formed, as if they were just waiting for the right listener, as if this person's attention was the exact frequency that unlocked something in you. That's not attachment, that's resonance. Have you ever lost someone, and the grief wasn't just about missing them, but about missing the version of yourself that existed with them? That's not attachment, that's transformation. You see, attachment is about the other person, but depth is about what happens inside you because of them, and no one can take that away, because it's already become part of who you are. So if this depth is so real, so powerful, why do we dismiss it? Why do we call it just attachment and move on? I'll tell you why. Because depth is terrifying. Because if you admit that what you felt was real, truly deeply real, then you also have to admit how much it hurt. And our world is deeply uncomfortable with pain that doesn't have a solution. We want to fix things. We want to move on. We want closure. We want the 5 steps, the healing arc, the Instagram-worthy transformation. And pain that is simply true, pain that doesn't need to be fixed, just felt, is something we don't know what to do with. So we call it attachment. We call it a pattern. We call it a lesson, because a lesson can be learned and left behind. But a truth has to be lived with. And we are a generation that has been taught to move fast, to heal quickly, to level up. We've made emotional processing a competition. Who gets over things faster, who posts the most unbothered selfie, who becomes the most emotionally evolved. And somewhere in that race, we stopped honoring what we actually feel. We stopped giving our deepest experiences the respect they deserve. Here's why this matters. When you call depth just attachment, you do something very dangerous. You teach yourself not to trust your own feelings. You start second-guessing every deep emotion you have. Is this real, or am I just attached? Do I actually love this person, or is it just my anxiety? Is this meaningful, or am I just afraid of being alone? And slowly, you disconnect from yourself. You become a stranger to your own inner life. You start outsourcing the interpretation of your feelings to other people, to therapists, to self-help books, to Twitter threads, instead of sitting with yourself and trusting what you know. And I'm not saying therapy is bad. It isn't. I'm not saying self-reflection is wrong. It isn't. But there's a difference between gaining clarity and using psychological analysis as a way to escape feeling. And there's a difference between understanding yourself and intellectualizing your emotions until they're so dissected, so labeled, so categorized that you've completely bypassed the experience of actually feeling them. And when you do that, when you mislabel your depth as dysfunction, you also start making decisions based on wrong information. You let go of things you should have held. You dismiss connections that were shaping you. You walk away from relationships that weren't perfect, but were real, because someone told you it was just attachment, and you believed them. I want you to think of a person right now, someone who changed you. Maybe it ended badly. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe the relationship had no future. Maybe it wasn't romantic at all, but they changed you. They introduced you to a song that still makes you close your eyes. They said something once, just once, that you still think about years later. They believed in something you had given up on. They made you laugh in a way that felt like breathing. Think of that person. Now tell me, was that just attachment? Was the way they looked at you like you were worth understanding just a habit? Was the conversation that lasted until dawn just comfort-seeking behavior? Was the feeling of being truly known by another human being just an anxious pattern? No. That was a soul recognizing another soul. That was 2 people in a universe that is vast and indifferent and overwhelmingly lonely, finding each other. And for a moment, however brief, however painful the ending, you were found. That is not small. That is not just attachment. That is one of the most profound experiences a human being can have. So what do we do with this? If we can't just label it and move on, if depth requires something more from us, what do we actually do? First, that we stop apologizing for feeling deeply. Feeling deeply is not a weakness. It is not neediness. It is not immaturity. It is a form of courage to be fully present in your own life, to let things matter, to risk being moved. The people who feel the least are not the strongest. They are the most protected. And there's a difference. Second, we allow grief to be grief. When something deep ends, we don't rush to analyze it. We don't immediately ask, what was the lesson? We don't start the self-improvement program 3 days after heartbreak. We grieve. We let ourselves feel the weight of what was lost. We honor it by taking it seriously, because you cannot heal what you refuse to feel, and the fastest path through pain is not around it, it's through it. Third, we redefine what moving on means. Moving on doesn't mean pretending something didn't matter. Moving on doesn't mean convincing yourself it was just attachment so you feel less. Moving on means carrying it forward. It means integrating the experience into who you are becoming. It means letting the depth you experienced expand you rather than shrink you. It means being grateful, even through the grief, that you were capable of feeling something that real. I want to offer you a different lens. Instead of asking, how do I get over this? Ask, what did this open in me? Instead of, why am I so attached? Ask, what does this depth tell me about what I value, what I'm capable of, what I'm longing for? Instead of treating your deepest feelings as problems to be solved, treat them as information. They are telling you something about yourself, about what matters to you, about the kind of love you're capable of, about the kind of life you actually want to live. And that information is sacred. Don't throw it away because it's uncomfortable. Don't label it and dismiss it because the world prefers people who don't feel too much. You were made to feel deeply. That is not your problem. That is your gift. And to the person who called it attachment, maybe they meant well. Maybe they were trying to protect you. Maybe they were offering you the most helpful framework they knew. But I want to say this. The next time someone is in pain, the next time someone is grieving a connection, a relationship, a person, don't be so quick to diagnose them. Don't reach for the psychological label before you've made space for the human experience. Sit with them. Let them tell you about the specific way that person laughed. Let them describe the exact moment they realized this person was different. Let them talk about the song, the conversation, the small, unforgettable thing. And instead of saying, it was just attachment, say, it sounds like that was really real. Because sometimes that's the only thing someone needs to hear. That what they felt was real. That they are not broken for feeling it. That they are not weak for grieving it. That the depth they experienced, however painful, was not a mistake. It was proof that they are still alive. You called it attachment. The world called it attachment. Maybe even you called it attachment because that was easier. Because depth is heavy to carry. Because real feeling is hard to explain. Because it's more comfortable to say, I was just attached, than to say, that person mattered to me in a way I don't have words for. And losing them changed the shape of who I am. And I will carry that with me, not as a wound, but as a watermark, invisible to everyone else, but always there. That's not attachment. That's what it means to be human, to be someone who chose, in a world full of walls and armor and emotional unavailability, to stay open, to feel fully, to love deeply. That is not your weakness. That is your most profound strength. Honor it. Protect it. Never let anyone, no one, convince you to feel less. Because the world doesn't need more people who have mastered the art of not caring. The world needs people like you. People who feel things that don't have names. People who miss others in ways that don't make logical sense. People who carry connections long after they've ended, because those connections are woven into them now. The world needs people who know the difference between what the mind calls attachment and what the soul knows was something much, much deeper. Thank you.